Hello, hello, my loves. How are you out there? Jamie, we are back. I am in rare form today and good reason because our topic today in this section, we are going to be talking about other people. Yeah. So, I don't know about you all, but when I am going through these concepts, when I was learning, all this stuff that we're talking about, like emotional healing, working out, eating well, feeling like $1,000,000, I would do really well when I was by myself, like in my own room. I'd play my worship music, my positive, vibes going on. And then something happens though when you get like out into the world and other people get involved, things start to quickly go askew. And so we're going to talk about that because there's like 7 billion people on the planet today. And with social media the way it is, you guys, we are bombarded with people all the time. Whether it's your family at home, whether it's your kids, your teenagers, if you're, at school or at work or whatever, you guys, we are around people all the time and we are social beings. Even you introverts out there, we're social beings. So we need to deal and learn to deal with other people and their own opinions and their own junk that they're dealing with. Okay. Which brings me to the very first thing. I want to hit this head off right off the get go right now. Realizing, you guys, other people are dealing with crap. Like they're dealing with their own deals. They're dealing with their own emotions. They're dealing with their own mindsets and experiences. And they haven't been taught to turn the head. They haven't been taught to ask better questions. They haven't been taught to ask the question, why do I think this way? Or who taught me this? Or is this even correct? Like they haven't been taught that, most of the people. So I really want to start this off with realizing that people are people and people are also struggling. Okay. So the next time you're having an argument, if you get nothing out of this entire video, the next time you're having an argument with someone, a loved one or not, in your mind, remember me saying people are dealing with their own crap. Like people have their own crap going on that has nothing to do with you. They have their own insecurities. They have their own little glitches that trigger fear, anxieties. They might be stuff going on at home that you don't even know about. They might have sick loved ones that they're stressed about. They might have financial issues. They might have relationship issues. They might be ill. Come on, right? We all have our own stuff going on that we're not necessarily don't walk around with a banner saying, hey, please be gentle because this is all the crap that I have on my shoulders today. We don't have that luxury. Yet something really weird happens is when we come into contact with these people, it's like we forget. We deal with our own things. We have our own lives in the forefront of our mind, and we forget that these other people also have their little banner of stuff that they're carrying, right? So let's have a little bit of empathy. It doesn't mean that we allow people to act however they want to act. I know that there's rude people out there. I know that, people say and do things that are not okay. And let me be very clear here. I am against anything beyond borders of abuse. Anything that is abusive or dehumanizing in any way whatsoever. That is not what I'm talking about. That you get away, get help, and protect yourself. I am all about full self-protection in those situations. So that is not what we're talking about here. We are talking about the general public. We're talking about your family. We're talking about your coworkers. We're talking about your husband, your mom, your sister, your brother, your teenager, whatever. Okay. People that you deal with on a regular basis. How do we deal with them and all of their opinions? Okay. Social media, all of their opinions. Okay. We can chalk it up to people are just jerks. We can do that. But guess what, you guys? We need each other. We need other people. We do. We for life, for fun, for friendships, for a thriving, happy life. Like we need other people. And in the emotional journey, the health journey that we're going through with each other, I really, really desire for you guys to get to a place where people can have their own opinions. People can have their own bad days. People can have their own crappy attitudes. And we know how to respond, right? We're responding on purpose, right? We're not reacting all the time. Just because Susie Q's in a bad mood, that doesn't give me I don't want Susie Q's bad mood to affect now my day. And now I'm now been out of shape. I am now having a crappy day. I am now totally ran down and exhausted and spun around because of that. That is what we're learning. We are learning how to deal with other people, deal with their opinions, deal with their bad attitudes, deal with their own struggling. How do we respond? How do we handle these sometimes very difficult situations in life? How do we handle them and not let it throw us off complete kilter and throw us into a bad attitude and throw us into disbeliefs and struggling in the struggling state, right? How do we stay out of the struggling state when dealing with other people? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. So first things first, you guys, I want to start with a couple concepts I'm going to throw at you, and I am very passionate about this subject. So this subject is something that will go beyond this video. We're going to talk about it more in our total reset when we're together over there. We'll talk about it one-on-one because it does tailor a lot. A lot of you guys are in different situations, okay? And so sometimes it is specific, but we're going to talk about pretty blanket concepts. I'll try to throw in a few examples in there of how to do that. But like always, if you need more specifics, then get a hold of me. We'll do a one-on-one. I'm happy to talk to you and dig deeper on that, okay? But the first concept I guys want you to get in your mind is the emotional umbilical cord, as I call it, okay? We all know that when babies are in the mother's womb, they have an umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is life. It is source. It is food, oxygen. It is life. If anything happens to the umbilical cord at any point during the pregnancy, it's an emergency, right? Because if it doesn't get fixed, the baby's going to die. The baby's going to die. The baby's going to have issues, things like that. So it's an emergency. It is a life source, right? So what is interesting is when we get born and then we are now adults without our mother's umbilical cords, what's interesting is we have linked these emotional umbilical cords to people, right? And it reminds me of the stupid leashes that kids wear at like SeaWorld and Disneyland. I get the reason for them, but it just reminds me of them. And I remember, I visualize these people with these like leashes, these emotional umbilical cords to people, and it is like their source. People's opinions, people's thought processes, people's different opinions. God help us if someone thinks differently than us. God help us if someone has a different opinion. We're thrown off by everything, right? That's an emotional umbilical cord to that person. Now, let me be very clear. It does not mean that the goal in this course is to get to the point where you're like, I don't care what you think of me. I don't care, because that's complete BS. Anybody who uses the term of like, I don't care what people think of me, are lying. We all think what we care about each other. We all do. We all care about people's opinions. We do want certain people to be proud of us. We do want certain people to accept us. We want to be a part of something that is human freaking nature, okay? It's not a big deal to care what people think, and certain people, it's not a big deal to want acceptance from certain people. It's not. It's okay. That's human nature. It's part of how we were made and what we were here to do. That's fine. What I'm talking about is the emotional umbilical cord, to where their opinions, their attitudes control you. They put you in a struggling state where you are not resourceful. Now you are also grumpy. Now you are also believing a bunch of BS that is not true, that is false. We're not talking about that. We need to break those emotional umbilical cords so that you can be in the living state and be resourceful. Okay. So another thing I want to throw this at you to visualize it, because this helped me a lot, is picture. So I love poker. I love poker. I love playing poker, and I don't know, I get a kick out of it because I'm not sure what I look like to other people. But apparently I don't look like a poker player. And so when I go sit down at that poker playing table, they literally are just like, who's this chick? And they assume that I am just there to, I guess, donate my money. I don't know. I'm not. I love poker and I love taking their chips. It's fantastic. And I get a kick out of it every single time because their mouths are just like, oh, who's this? When I start, winning. So anyway, so funny. But in poker, you have chips that are worth different values, right? They might be worth 10, 25, 100, 500, and so on, okay? So they're different weights. They're different values. Think of your emotions the same way. There are certain emotions that are weighted very heavily. They're valued very heavily. Anger, very heavily weighted value, okay? Sadness, okay? That goes into like depression, things like that. fear, the actual fear of like, I'm scared for my life fear, exceptional beyond happiness, right? These things are weighted. These are not emotions that you are meant to have all the time. They're not emotions that you are meant to have on a daily basis. But a lot of us have gotten to the point where you have gotten yourself so frazzled that you are throwing these weighted chips left and right, the anger everywhere. You're offended and angry and frustrated, stressed out. You're throwing these heavily weighted emotions all over the place, constantly, all day long, every day, all week. Okay? What happens when you keep using your big chips? At some point, you go bankrupt. At some point, you go broke. Right? So you're feeling emotionally broke because every time so-and-so gives you an attitude and you're offended, you're throwing the big weighted emotional chips. You're getting angry, you're getting frustrated, you're getting ticked because how dare she says XYZ, right? So today in this video with dealing with other people, we really want to even touch the iceberg because I know it's a bigger subject than this, but I really want to like encourage you to start seeing that, oh, I keep giving that person or these people really heavily weighted emotional chips. I have an emotional umbilical cord to these people, to these things, and they're strong and they're throwing me off and they're putting me in a struggling state. And they're ruining my attitude, my belief, whatever. And I really want you to start to see it happening, okay? That's a really big first step to start doing, all right? And then as we practice it, you will start to respond and get better, okay? But I have some really good, fun tips and ways to stop ourselves from having those emotional weighted chips with other people. Whether you're in an argument or you just work with people you don't like, it's okay to not like people. Right? It's okay to not like people, but let's not dishonor them. Let's not be a jerk with them. Let's be more of a mature person that's in the living state so that we are resourceful in the situation. Okay? So one of the biggest things I like to do is always, like I've been teaching this whole time with other people, you guys, it's still consistent. Ask better questions. Just ask questions, period. When you find yourself in a difficult situation, first realize they're people and they are also struggling with whatever. They're probably coming from a struggling state. They may not even know it, but they're obviously struggling with something. So that's the first thing, is to notice what are they struggling with? Notice they're struggling with something. And then I always like to ask better questions. What else could this mean? Like, why are they coming at me like that? Why do they care so much that I wore the shirt? Or why do they care to tell me that ugly comment? Or whatever. Or why did they say that? Why did that come out of their mouth, right? Start to ask better questions. What else could that mean? Does it automatically mean that mean comment that your husband accidentally blurted out in a really bad fit of attitude, trying to be nice, does it automatically mean that he's a jerk? Does it automatically mean that he doesn't love you? No, it doesn't. What else could it mean? Okay, it could mean that he's super stressed and has a lot of pressure on him and you aren't realizing that. Or it's super stress and a lot of pressure and wasn't meant to come out the way it did, right? Maybe you're in a different attitude and how you hear it is not what it meant, which is another good question. One of the really good questions, actually, I got this from my husband, is he asked the questions, what did you hear? What did you hear? Because depending on my attitude and depending on what he's going through, he can say something and I can hear something totally different. So what did you hear is a really good question when you're in like a confrontational conversation, especially with someone that you love, or even if coworker. What did you hear that I said? Instead of just going off assuming that what they said was rude and disrespectful. It may not have meant what they meant at all, okay? Realizing that this isn't about me, right? When someone's going off the handle and they're having a bad moment, or they're, posting an ugly comment on social media, you guys, or they said something that was very hurtful, realize that in the moment, remember, staying at the top, staying in that living state so you can be resourceful, realizing, hey, you know what? I don't think this is about me. I really don't think that this is about this project. I really don't think that this is actually about what's going on right now. I think there's something else that's triggering this stress, something else that's triggering this fear or this bad attitude or the things that are coming out of their mouth. I don't think that this is all about me, right? Okay. Also too, you guys, trying to think, I feel like I'm forgetting something really important. One of the concepts that I really, really find important and very powerful when you're dealing with other people is to set the boundaries. Okay, set the boundaries that obviously it can't be abusive. We're not dehumanizing each other. If that in the case happens, I like to excuse myself from the conversation. Like, hey, you know what? We can agree to disagree on this and have a conversation, but we're not going to treat each other that way, right? So setting the boundaries and also coming to a conversation of we're not gonna create a you versus me. We're not gonna do that. This is not gonna be a you versus me conversation, because our goal, talk about what the goal is. Our goal is to get this project done. So we have to work together on this. We can't be you versus me. So tell me again, what are your thoughts on this? Tell me again, what are you concerned about? Tell me again, what else could this mean? Right? Like asking better questions, staying in the living state. My husband, I like to keep that in my mind sometimes because my husband has a strong personality and so do I. So sometimes we have gotten in some pretty heavy conflicts. But when we pause and think, okay, wait a minute, what is my goal here? My goal is to love and honor my husband because I do love him to death. My goal is to keep my marriage. My goal is to be happy in my marriage. My goal is for both of our happiness. My goal is us. Man, that is my number one goal. So this is not going to be a you versus me. This is not going to be a me versus him conversation. I'm not going to alienate my husband, who is my number one guy, who is, he's your husband. I'm not going to make him feel like an idiot. I'm not going to make him feel like a fool. I'm not going to make him feel worthless. It's not me versus him, right? As soon as you start to really come from it at that standpoint, from the living state, okay? From a living state, you start to come at it from that point. You start to be resourceful and you start to really be able to kind of settle down in the conversation and have a mature conversation where you can get stuff resolved, where you can talk about what's creative. You can talk about the solution. You can talk about what your ideas are or his ideas are. And you can start to come to a place where it actually starts to make sense, even if you still disagree. Because then if you disagree, it's like, hey, you know what? I see that different, and that's okay. It's not now affecting me if I see different, you see different, we shouldn't be together. Right? It's okay. He thinks this way and I think that way. And this is how we're going to compromise and make this work. I hear you on this, you guys. Listen up. This takes time. This takes time and this takes work, especially if you have relationships where they have been very volatile, or you have a habit of just butting heads and you've been fighting for years and things like that. It does not mean that it's, over and done with. If you both are willing to start to learn these concepts of living from a living state and getting yourself, don't worry about them, getting yourself out of a struggling state into a living state and operating that way, one, you'll blow them away because your response, they are naturally going to respond to you. Naturally going to respond because they're going to catch you off guard. They're going to expect this, right? What they're used to. They're going to expect that reaction that is intense and that is defending, right? They're going to expect the nagging and the complaining and the rah all the time, right? When they get you in a spot where in your mind you're thinking, okay, how can I be resourceful? What else does this mean? What else could this mean? And you coming from a living state, you're coming from a resourceful state, you will be shocked at the response that you're going to get just by changing your state, just by coming from a living state instead of a struggling state with other people. It blew my mind every single time I did it. And I did have to bite my tongue, I will tell you, because I have a strong personality and I have strong opinions and I have a lot of them. It doesn't mean that I was right? Different doesn't mean wrong. Just because someone thinks different from you doesn't mean they're wrong. Okay, so learn from other people, because if we assume that we're right all the time, then we aren't ever have a chance to be better or be at our best or be smarter, right? And so different doesn't equal wrong. It's just different. Oh, you think that? Okay, cool. That's good to know. Now I know more about you now. Now I think this, right? You don't have to just Other people's opinions doesn't mean that you have to take them on. They don't have to take them on. And I think that's why people stress out. I think they think that they have to take on other people's opinions. They have to take them on. They have to say, oh, you think that, and now I have to think that too, and I don't want to. And that's what creates the conflict. That's what creates the uneasiness. That's why you're uncomfortable. That's why you're stressed out. You don't have to. You don't, it's such a simple concept. You don't have to. You can say, hey, that's an interesting way of living. That's interesting. And now I'm going to go this way and do it my way and go over here. Like, you don't have to get upset about someone else's way of living or thinking or whatever. You don't have to get upset about it. Let them be them. As long as it's not affecting you in your life, as long as it's not abusive, do that, stay in your living state and walk out that way. Okay. All right. Anything else? So we created boundaries, keeping your goal, emotional umbilical cord. We're going to break it. You guys, you break it by turning your head. Where do you want to go? Know what your goal is, whether it's a project, whether it's a relationship. Start asking better questions in the conversation. Okay. Start asking better questions when someone even on social media has a bad comment. What could this mean? What else could this mean? What could else be going on here? Right? Who do I want to be in responding to this? How do I want to respond to this? And if something really does affect you, take notice. Like, ooh, I have an emotional umbilical cord to this one. Because I don't know about you, but I know for me, I don't want an emotional umbilical cord to anybody. I don't want anybody having that kind of control over my life. I don't want anybody having that kind of control over my reactions and my responses and how I feel about who I am. I don't want anybody being able to do that. So someone can say a nasty comment and I have to go, oh, that's interesting. Like, what about them made them say something so nasty? That's interesting. Because it doesn't mean it's true, right? It doesn't mean someone could tell me that I'm ugly. It doesn't make it true, right? It doesn't make it true unless I let it offend me. What's interesting though is if you think about it, why would that person say that, right? Start asking better questions so you can stay in the living state, dealing with other people. I know it's hard, but you're resourceful here. If you have a struggling teenager, you guys, instead of going to a struggling state and freaking out, right? Freaking out, being stressed, being fearful, the world's coming to an end. What do I do? How do I control them, right? Start asking yourself better questions. Start talking about getting yourself to a living state. Then that is where you're resourceful. That is where you can then encourage them. You could ask them better questions that will trigger their thinking and their emotions and help be resourceful to what the solution is, rather than just trying to control and come from a stressful, controlling state. Okay? Got it? Takes tons of practice. I totally understand. This is the tip of the iceberg on dealing with other people. I absolutely understand. There's a whole bunch of other things that we could get into. We'll talk more on it during the total reset section, but I want to just like start the motor, if you will, to get going, to take these questions and these concepts that I've been giving you, realize other people are there in the struggling state, realize that you have control still dealing with other people, staying in the living state, asking the better questions, turning your head, realizing that they have their own Google mind, that they have their own experiences that have told them X equals Z, right? They have all of their own stuff happening. Oh, this is such a big subject. I know it's so difficult, but as we get going and we will practice it and we'll dig in deeper, and all of these concepts, as you work on yourself, you guys, you will improve your skill set. You will improve your abilities. You will improve what you're capable to do as far as living in the living state. And then your responses on purpose are going to improve. And that's going to improve all of your relationships around you as well. Okay? Ask better questions. Realize there are people and they're struggling. Create your boundaries and know your goal with them. Okay? Keep yourself in that living state and your relationships will start to improve. All right, you guys, one-on-one with any questions, let me know how you think and how you're doing with this topic and this subject. I know there's going to be a lot of comments. I know there's going to be a lot of questions. Bring it on. I know it's deep. We will dig in deep together and clear up any of those relationships that are struggling or any hard, difficult situations that you might be in with other people. All right? Keep up the good work. I'm so proud of you. Toodaloo.